All right, on the next passage, 32 through 41. Before we start this, remember, read the little blurb at the top, just so you have an idea of what you're about to jump into. So this one is talking about, this passage is adapted from Virginia Woolf, Three Guineas, copyright 1938. And here, Woolf, who the author is, considers the situation of women in English society. So we're in 1938 talking about women in English society. So again, this should give you a pretty good indication of what this passage is about. It looks like we do have a woman doing the writing. So just from that, you have an idea that this is probably something to do with women's rights. That was a big movement during this time period. So anyway, with that, let's go ahead and start the questions. Again, normally we would not start on 33, or 32, I mean. But we are going to go in order, so I'm just going to order the questions. But normally you would start on either 34 or 35, but I'll get to that when I get to it. So 32, the main purpose of the passage is to. So as you read this passage, as you did these questions, one thing that you should be recognizing is that this is about, obviously, women's rights, but it's not just about them getting their rights. They've earned them. They've already gotten the right to be a part of the procession, be a part of the things that men are a part of. So they've gotten those rights, but it's more about, now that we have them, what do we do with it? And they mention that in a few different places. Again, we have all the things about where should we spend this sixpence. Remember that sixpence was their opportunity that they earned. So what do they do with it? And they talked about earlier, and we had questions that we did with this. These are the important questions they have, and we have very little time in which to answer them, so they had to take advantage of this opportunity that they were given. So that's really what this passage is about. So 32, is it about emphasizing the value of a tradition? And there's really no tradition here that they're talking about. If there was, it would be the men working, and that's not really what this is about at all. So it's not going to be A. B, does it stress the urgency of an issue? So we are stressing something, and it is urgent. They had very little time in which to to figure out how to handle this new opportunity. So they are stressing an urgency, the issue maybe of women getting rights and power and things like that. So B sounds pretty good, so I'll keep that for right now. C says, highlight the severity of social divisions. Now here, I don't really think they're talking much about social divisions. More so, they're talking about women getting the opportunity to have more power and what to do with it. So that is not mentioned in C, so we're not going to pick it, even though maybe there were some social divisions, but that's not what this passage is about. D says, is it questioning the feasibility of an undertaking? They're not really saying, or the author isn't really saying, like, this is going to be too much for us to handle or anything like that, and that's what D is kind of saying. So that's not stated in the passage, so we're not going to pick D. So 32 is going to be B. So moving on to number 33, which is another one we wouldn't answer quite yet. We do last. If you're checking this last, that's fine. It says the central claim of the passage. So again, we're looking at yet another main idea, really. So this is just going to be a different perspective, but really, if we understand what the passage is about, and if you're ever stuck, relate the answers to the questions that we've already answered. Use those questions to kind of help you figure out what that central claim may be. But the central claim, just like I said in number 32, is that this was about women earning new powers, opportunity to be able to have more predominant roles in society, and they're really figuring out, like, what are we going to do with this opportunity? How are we going to spend this sixpence, like one of the other questions stated? So in this case, we want to see which one matches that. So the central claim is that educated women, so obviously we're talking about educated women that earn the right to have these predominant roles in society, they face a decision. So this is also looking good. So you're checking all this stuff, and everything so far looks good about how to engage with existing institutions. the ones that men were a part of. So when I read A, everything seems to match. Now, it could be missing something. That's why I always say do process elimination, so you check the other ones as well in case there's something else you like, and then you can maybe catch a mistake or a word that doesn't fit that you thought fit before. But anyway, we'll go down to B. It says women can have positions of influence in English society. And they say this phrase, only if. And that's a really strong word. You should be scared of picking an answer that uses a phrase like only if in it, because again, it's strong language. So only if they give up some of their traditional roles. And it really didn't say that, so it's not going to be B, and it has that strong language anyway. C says the male monopoly on power in English society has had grave, another strong word, and continuing effects. And again, this isn't about men, honestly. It's about women and what they're going to do with this power. And this is not about men. D says the entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men. So all this sounds good. I like all of that. It will transform those positions. Now, here's the next thing about that. Like, okay, maybe it will transform the positions, but the thing is that the central claim of the passage? So this is a statement that may be true, but if it's not in the passage, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. So they're going to try to get you by having one that says something that you probably agree with, but that's not what the question's saying. It's what's the central claim of the actual passage, not what's your opinion on the content of this passage. Now, they're not going to ask for your opinion on the SAT, so we're not going to pick one that we may feel is true. We're going to pick the one that the passage is talking about, and that's all the passage is saying. So 33 is going to be A. 34 says Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage, mainly to. So what we want to do is figure out when they say we, and when they're saying it, what does it mean? That's the first thing. And then once you know what it means is why they keep using it. So this is used, again, quite often. So you have to kind of take a look and see when is we used. Well, I can see we is going to be right here. We are pressed for time. We are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes. So what you want to start doing is every time you see we, start paying attention to what it means. And then once you figure out what it means, then we can kind of figure out why they keep using it. Now, one of the things the lines that I felt really helped me figure out what it means and how it is used is, we start getting down to the second paragraph. So these few lines here that kind of help you out. But if you don't see it, I'll kind of explain it to you now. Hopefully you at least saw at some point, because once you read this whole passage, you should figure out that we is women. They're talking about women, and they keep using women, as a whole here. They're saying at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, trespassing along at the tail end of the procession, we, women, go ourselves, and that makes a difference. We, who have looked so long at the pageant and books, and they keep saying about, again, we as women. So at some point, it doesn't matter exactly where you catch this, but you notice that they say we a lot to talk about all women. So once you notice that, then you should be able to go and answer this question. So they use it mainly to, and I would say mainly to kind of talk about women as a whole. They're using that to just talk about women. So they use it to reflect on the growing friendliness among a group of people about how women are now friends? No, that's not what they're saying. B, is it to advance the need for candor among a group of people? No. Is it to establish a sense of solidarity among a group of people? Now, this one seems to kind of match, because we're talking about women as a whole group. It's not like, 20 women are at the end of this procession. It's we go. All of us go. So those 20 women represent everybody. So that would seem to match pretty good. Does it reinforce the need for respect? They're not demanding respect here, and that's not how it's being used anyway. So 34 is going to be C. Moving on to number 35, it says, according to the passage, Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge. Now, this is actually the first question that really is talking about something specific in the passage, other than, using the word we throughout. So this should show up fairly early, and it does, because it shows up right away. And again, before we get to it, again, we want to make sure we're looking for why Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge. So why did they mention the bridge? So right at the very beginning of this passage, you'll see that. It says, close at hand is a bridge over the river Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. So it seems like they're using the bridge because it's a great vantage ground for the survey. And then they kind of go into more detail. The river flows beneath, barges pass, laden with timber. They keep going in here. The domes and spires of the city. It is a place to stand on by the hour, dreaming, but not now. Now we are pressed for time. And they kind of get off the whole, making the the vantage ground for the survey. But at the very end of the paragraph, they do mention what that survey may be. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. So it seems like it's a great vantage ground to do a survey of this procession. And all that other stuff is kind of filler in between. So then we go to number 35 and see which one kind of says that. It's a good vantage ground for to kind of view that procession. So A says it is conducive to a mood of fanciful reflection. They do kind of mention real briefly about the reflection piece, but that's not really why they mention the bridge. It's about being able to observe that procession. B says provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. That is literally exactly what we were looking for. C said is within sight of the historic episodes to which she alludes. And again, they talk about all the sights you can see, but again, that's not the main reason why the bridge was mentioned. And D, it is symbolic of the legacy of past and present sons of educated men. I don't know that was a symbol at all, so that's not it anyway. B is obviously going to be our best answer for number 35. All right, moving on to number 36. Says, Woolf indicates that the procession she describes in the passage. Now, with this one, you'll notice this is the citing evidence question, so we are doing 36 and 37 at the same time right now. Now, when you read 36, what you have to do is figure out what you're going to be looking for in the evidence. So, she indicates that the procession, so we have to be talking about the procession that she describes in the passage. Now, if you want some more information when you're reading this question, it's like, what are we trying to describe? Well, you can look at the answers for some clues. Now, I'm not telling you to read the answers, but you can kind of see as you look at the answer choices, has come to, has become, includes all, has become. So, I'm going to start with C. Now, first off, I'm probably not going to want to pick C anyway because it has that strong language. And I always tell you, try to avoid strong language. Now, you look at the other three answers, it says has come to, has become, has become. So this kind of tells me when I look at my evidence, I'm looking to see how the procession has changed. So I want to find an answer choice that describes how the procession has changed. So I'm going to look at my my evidence, and I'm going to see which one tells me how it's changed. So when you look at the evidence for A, it says, there they go, our brothers, who have been educated at public schools and universities, mounting those steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, and all this other stuff. Now, this one is not describing how the procession has changed. It just says, there they go. Like, here's some of the guys inside the procession. So I'm not going to pick A. Then I go to B. It says, it is a solemn sight, always a procession, like a carnavassier crossing a desert. Now again, when I read this one, it's describing the procession, but it's not saying how it's changed, so I don't like B either. C says, for there, trespassing along the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. Now this is maybe talking about how it's changed when we're looking at these lines. It's saying women are now a part of that procession. So this one seems to be a little bit better in terms of describing how it's changed. So I'm going to keep that. And then it says for D, it says, we too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from a pulpit. For this one, again, it's not describing the procession. So when I look at my evidence for 36 to 37, I'm going to go with answer choice C for my evidence. That's the one describing how it's changed. Now again, how does it describe how it's changed? It says that women are now a part of it. So I'm going to look at the answer choice. It kind of says that. So it has come to have a more practical influence. I mean, maybe that's someone's opinion to be more practical, like it's more practical to have women a part of it, but that's not really what they're saying. They're saying how it's changed. Has it become a celebrated feature? Maybe, I don't know, but they're not saying that in the passage. And then let's, again, see, we probably don't like anyway, but it says does include all the richest and most powerful men. Again, does it? I mean, I would say all is kind of too strong, so it shouldn't be C. So it better be D. It has become less exclusionary. Now women are a part of it. They didn't used to be a part of it. So yeah, it's become less. It has become less exclusionary in its membership. Yeah, I would say that's true. So D is going to be our answer for 36. So 36 is D. 37 is C. Moving on, we have 39. It says Woolf characterizes the questions in lines 53 and 57 as both. Now this one, when we say both, there's got to be two things we're talking about here. So this is an evidence-based question, but before I look for evidence, let's read those questions in lines 53 through 57. So the question says, or those lines say, for we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of educated men? So they're asking themselves how they should take advantage of this fact that now they can be a part of this procession. So they characterize these questions as both. So we want to say, how are these, this decision about joining the procession, how is it being characterized? So I'm going to read the evidence for that's listed in number 39, and I want to find them characterize these questions two different ways. And your evidence has to have both of those ways mentioned, or, I mean, frankly, it's not going to be right. So let's see which one does that. Starting in lines 46 and 47. So we are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions. That's not just characterizing them, much as mentioning that there are questions. So it's not going to be A. And they're very important questions. So this one is describing them. They're very important. And we have very little time in which to answer them. Notice how that one says two different things. They're important and they have little time. So B looks pretty good. Next, it says the moment is short. Now that may mean for answer choice C for your evidence, that says the moment is short. That is saying we don't have a lot of time, but it's not mentioning the important aspect. So that's why that one would not be an answer. And that excuse for answer choice D, that excuse shall not serve you, madame. Again, here that's not really mentioning two different things or just characterizing the questions anyway. So I'm liking answer choice B. They're important and we have little time. So now we're going to go to our answer choices. And again, first off, I'm picking answer choice B for 39. And they're important and we have little time. So important looks like a weighty, momentous, seem to match those. And little time looks like pressing would be little time. So it looks like C has both of these. So we're going to pick C for number 38. So that's 38 and 39. Number 40, which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence featured referred to in lines 70 and 71? So for this one, they are mentioning the word sixpence in lines 70 and 71. That's where the words are mentioned. That is not necessarily where the answer is. So what we want to do is figure out what is the meaning of it. So lines 70 and 71 we'll read, and then we're going to probably have to read a little bit extra just because they mention sixpence in these lines, but that may not mean that's where the actual answer is. So what is the meaning of it? So I'm going to start right here at the beginning on line 69. And it says, it was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. So we won this brand new thing. We don't know what it is yet, but we won it. It falls to us now to go on thinking, how are we to spend that sixpence? Well, figuring out how to spend it, we need to figure out what it is. So they say we need to think about how we're going to spend it. Well, think we must. Let us think in offices, in omnibuses, while we are standing in the crowd watching coronations and Lord Mayor's shows, let us think. In the gallery of the House of Commons, in the law courts, let us think at baptisms and marriages and funerals. So it seems like we're thinking at all these really, really important places. So we want to go back and again figure out what is a sixpence. Well, they want us this right. Well, what is, we think, what is this whole passage about? It's about women's rights and getting these new powers in society. So we've just won the right to be able to have these important positions. So how are we going to spend this? Well, I would call this, this newfound power. We're going to spend it by thinking in all these important places and really doing a good job. So this sixpence, again, what it represents is and if you look at the answer choices, you can probably see it. It doesn't represent tolerance. It doesn't represent knowledge. This is a great trap. It is not knowledge. This passage is not about knowledge. It's about opportunity, or it's not perspective. So this is actually going to be C. They try to get you on 40 with this trap because they say think a lot. But again, that's not what this is about. The sixpence is an opportunity to think. So B is a great trap. It probably makes 40 a hard question, but it's actually the sixpence is their opportunity that they've won. So that leaves us with number 41. Last question. The range of places and occasions listed in lines 72 through 76 mainly serves to emphasize what? So this one, it goes with what we just read. So we're listing all these places to kind of talk about, all the places they're thinking, but they're trying to emphasize all the important places that they're going to have an opportunity to be a part of, the important scenario situations and whatever you want to call it. So again, having just read that, we can just kind of go in and answer number 41. If you need to go back and read it, then go ahead and do that. But again, the question states, so we know what to focus on, the range of places and occasions listed in these lines serve to emphasize. Okay, we're trying to emphasize what? So they're talking about spending this opportunity by thinking in really important places and actually trying to make a change. So is it about, they mention these places to emphasize how novel the challenge is? No, they're talking about thinking, right? So, and basically doing a good job in these places. So is it B, about how pervasive the need for critical reflection is? This is at least talking about, they are doing a reflection. They're reflecting on how to spend this newfound opportunity. So I would keep that as a potential answer and then keep reading. C says, how does it emphasize how complex the political and social issues of the day are? And again, this is not mentioned in the passage at all about political and social issues, so it's not going to be C. And is it about emphasize how enjoyable the career possibilities for women are? And they're not really. There's no part about women in this passage. Not that they weren't, but how exciting it is to have these new jobs. It's about how important this opportunity is and how we really need to take advantage of it. So even though B isn't an incredibly great answer, it's the best one we really have. And that's where, again, where cross-elimination comes in. You really want to find the best answer from the answer choices that we have. And again, I can see things that are wrong with A, C, and D. At least B is talking about the right content. So we're going to go ahead and pick B for number 41.